Hello everyone, welcome back. This video is all about DNA sequencing. Why do we need to sequence a DNA? For example, there is a DNA fragment with a set of genes. Say for example, there are 4 different genes A, B, C and D. Okay. I am interested in isolating this gene D because it codes for a hormone called insulin. I wanted to make a sufficient quantity of this insulin to treat a diabetic patient by isolating this gene and incorporating this gene into a suitable vector to make a multiple copies of this gene. At the same time, I wanted to get a product out of it by cloning this gene. Right? How I came to know that this particular gene codes for the hormone insulin? If I sequence the DNA, I'll get the entire genetic information of an organism. I'll come to know the position of bases and also the expression of the gene. So I can easily pick a particular gene of interest, then I go with gene cloning to make a recombinant DNA molecule. I'll give you one more example. Say for example, I have 3 different E. coli strains. Out of these 3 strains, one E. coli strain is the original strain which is sensitive to antibiotics, and the other E. coli strain is multi-drug resistant. That means it is resistant to all the available drugs and it is a mutant strain, right? And the third strain is a novel strain. I don't have any information about this strain. Right? I need to carry further studies on this strain by sequencing the DNA so that I'll get information whether this strain is resistant to drugs or sensitive to drugs. I already have information about this strain 1 and strain 2, but as it is a novel strain, I don't have any information about it. Now I am going to carry out DNA sequencing on all these strains and I will carry out a comparison study to know which organism is more pathogenic. With the help of this DNA sequencing, we'll come to know the presence or the absence of the gene. At the same time, we'll come to know which gene is responsible for making the organism more pathogenic. Right? Here, this is a sensitive strain because here it doesn't carry any genes that codes resistance to the antibiotic. Whereas coming to this mutant strain, here there is presence of certain genes which codes resistance to antibiotics. When it comes to the third strain, after performing DNA sequencing, I'll come to know whether the gene is present or absent. I'll come to know whether this organism is pathogenic or not. I'll come to know whether this particular organism is resistant to antibiotics or sensitive to antibiotics. So, to carry out any kind of research work, DNA sequencing play a very important role. At the same time, if we want to prepare a cDNA library, then this DNA sequencing methods are helpful. We have many different advanced DNA sequencing methods, but I am going to talk about 2 important methods, and they are Maxam-Gilbert method and Sanger's dideoxy method. I am going to talk in detail about Sanger's dideoxy method in this video. You can find my other video on Maxam and Gilbert method. Coming to the first method, that is Sanger's dideoxynucleotide triphosphate method. This method was developed by Frederick Sanger, and in this method we are going to use dideoxynucleotide triphosphate. They play a very important role and they act as terminators for DNA synthesis. As we use them in this method was so called as Sanger's dideoxynucleotide triphosphate method. In this Sanger's dideoxy method, DNA is sequenced by generating fragments through the controlled interruption of enzymatic replication. So here in this method, what we are going to do? First, we need to initiate the process of replication by providing DNA template, DNTPs, primer and DNA polymerase 1. At the same time, we are going to provide this DDNTP which act as a terminator molecule. So it is going to block the process of DNA replication. DNA polymerase 1 is used to copy a particular sequence of a single stranded DNA. As I told you just now, we are going to provide a DNA template, and when we provide this enzyme DNA polymerase, what it is going to do? It is going to add one nucleotide after the other. based on the sequence information that is present on the template DNA strand. In this way, the other strand of the DNA will be synthesized with the help of this enzyme DNA polymerase 1. This method requires single-stranded DNA, primer, radio-labeled 4 types of nucleotide triphosphates and DNA polymerase 1. Just now I told you, right, what are the requirements? Single-stranded DNA which acts as a template, primer which is going to initiate the process of replication, radio-labeled 4 types of nucleotide triphosphate. So we are going to use radio-labeled DNTPs. So in presence of this DNTPase, this enzyme DNA polymerase is going to add one nucleotide after the other. For suppose if there is a sequence of ATGC, then the DNA polymerase is going to add thymine, adenine, cytosine and guanine. As they both are complementary to each other. You all know that adenine always pairs with thymine and guanine always pairs with cytosine, right? So based on the sequence information that is present on the template strand, this DNA polymerase is going to add one nucleotide after the other. In this way, the strand is synthesized. But here we are going to block the process of replication by using this DDNTP. So the important requirement of this method is dideoxynucleotide triphosphate, which is designated as DDNTP. Look at the picture. This is the structure of DDNTP. This DDNTP is going to block the process of DNA polymerization because they lack 3' hydroxyl group. Instead of hydroxyl group, they have hydrogen at 3' end. As you all know, phosphodiester bond is formed between 5' phosphate group and 3' hydroxyl group, right? Here instead of hydroxyl group, they have hydrogen. As they lack 3' hydroxyl group, they act as terminators of DNA synthesis. Now let us discuss about the steps involved in Sanger's dideoxy method. 4 reaction tubes are set up, each containing single-stranded DNA template. Now what we are supposed to do? We need to take 4 different test tubes, each containing a single-stranded DNA. Add all 4 types of radio-labeled deoxynucleotide triphosphates, primer and DNA polymerase enzyme to reaction tube. So now we are having 4 different test tubes, right? All these test tubes are added with single-stranded DNA which acts as a template, and we are going to add primer to initiate the process of replication. We are going to add the enzyme DNA polymerase 1. At the same time, we are going to add radio-labeled DNTPs. Now all these 4 test tubes will contain single-stranded DNA, primer, DNA polymerase 1 and radio-labeled DNTPs, right? Add one type of DDNTP to each reaction tube so that 4 reaction tubes contain different DDNTPs. So now in the first test tube we are going to add DDATP. In the second test tube we are going to add DDGTP. And in the third one we are going to add DDTTP. And in the last one we are going to add DDCTP. In this way, in each test tube we are going to add a particular DDNTP. So now all the 4 test tubes will have a different DDNTP. Here especially we have added DDATP, whereas in the other one we have added DDGTP, DDTTP and DDCTP. So each added with a particular dideoxynucleotide triphosphate. Separate fragments using electrophoresis after proper incubation. Sample should be run on different lanes on same gel. So now what all are present in these test tubes? They contain single-stranded DNA as a template, primer, DNA polymerase 1 and radio-labeled DNTPase which helps in the synthesis of DNA strand. At the same time, we provide a specific dideoxynucleotide triphosphate which is going to terminate the process of DNA synthesis. In this way, we are going to generate DNA fragments, and those DNA fragments are separated with the help of a technique called electrophoresis. I already made a video on electrophoresis. I'll provide you iCard. Please go through that video. Now we are going to cast an agarose gel with 4 wells. All these 4 wells are loaded with 4 samples. We need to take out sample from the first test tube and it will be added into a first well. Again, sample taken from the second test tube added into the second well. Sample taken from the third test tube added into a third well. And again, the sample taken from the fourth test tube is added into a fourth well. In this way, all the 4 wells are loaded with 4 different samples onto a same gel. The gel is used for autoradiography so that the position of different bands in each lane can be visualized. Now, after performing electrophoresis, we need to subject this gel to autoradiography in order to visualize different DNA bands. And based on the pattern of those DNA bands, we can determine the sequence of DNA. Look at the gel picture carefully. These are the different DNA fragments that are visualized on the gel picture. As you all know, with the help of electrophoresis technique, we are going to separate DNA fragments based on size and charge. DNA carries negative charge and it moves towards the positive charge, that is the opposite charge. Whereas all these DNA fragments are different in size. Some are smaller and some are larger. Larger ones will have high molecular weight compared to the smaller ones. So smaller ones with less molecular weight can move faster and they appear away from the well. Whereas the larger ones will move slowly and they appear near the well. Based on this gel picture, we can easily determine the sequence of DNA. Now observe the picture. Where is the smallest DNA fragment and the largest DNA fragment? Here it is the smaller one, right? And it moved faster compared to the larger DNA fragment. Now the sequence is A, T, G, C, C, G, T, A. In this way, we determine the sequence of DNA with the help of Sanger's dideoxy method. In my next video, I will talk about Maxam and Gilbert method. See you soon. Thank you.